This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Jeff Gardner.
Welcome to another episode of the Good Neighbor Podcast. Today we have another good neighbor on, Dr. Melissa Longo of Thrive Chiropractic and Holistic Care. Dr. Longo, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm glad we finally made this happen.
We did. I forget what it was, but I remember it was our fault. Some type of tech issue or scheduling issue last time. But thank you for being patient. We're looking forward to having a conversation with you. Certainly in the health world, if it's entrepreneurship, if it's growing a business, and if it's health, those are the two skills that I've developed. Not much good at anything else outside of that. I started my own gyms back in the day, and obviously you got to learn how to do business, but really fitness and health is the foundation of my life. So always excited to learn more about that. But let's start at the top. What is it that you do, Dr. Longo?
Mostly, I am in clinical practice. I have a family practice in beautiful Collingwood, Ontario. I've been in clinical practice for 23 years, and I see families. So I see people of all ages, focusing on structural and neurological health. So creating healthy movement patterns, obviously healing joint injuries and problems within the body. But because I focus on the structure and function, the neurospinal unit as a whole, and looking at movement patterns, I see kids, I see people of all ages with all injuries. Sometimes I see people who don't have any mechanical issue, but they're struggling with digestion or headaches or, learning challenges. I see a ton of kids. I love my practice. It's such a variety of people on a daily basis. And, you're asking me earlier, like what I prefer to be referred to as, and it depends. Like I get called Dr. Longo a lot, but people call me Melissa, depending on our relationship. So it's just a really relaxed, joyous place for me to be. I love seeing transformations in people's health, and it's inspired me still 23 years later. I'm also a mom, and I became a mom before I became a chiropractor. So that has always shaped my business life quite a bit as well. And I've had to evolve and adapt my business as my sons matured, but by choice, fortunately. So that's the biggest piece of my life right now. I also do some consulting and coaching work for families, for entrepreneurs, for other healthcare professionals. And I've got another side fun project of producing podcasts and stuff as well. So I kind of do a lot of different things to keep me creatively inspired.
Busy. When you say what were the exact words that you said? You became a mother first. And so that's been a big function of building your business. So in what way? How is that?
I didn't know. My due date for my first son was the day that I was supposed to graduate. I did graduate from chiropractic school. I was not, 9 months pregnant, and becoming a mother. And then I wrote my licensing exams when my son was 6 weeks old. So any new parents out there, you can imagine what those 6 weeks were like. First child, knew a lot about healthcare, but it was crazy time for sure. My sons have shaped my business life because fortunately I've had times where I could, shift my hours to be present with them. When I became a mom, I always wanted to be a present mom. And that's what I wanted. It's not that I'm saying parents don't want to be present, but I wanted to be home with my kids as much as I could be. I wanted to be in their life. That was my personal dream. So being able to adapt my business life, my clinical hours around my kids when they were younger was really important. I was able to take, when my second son was born, I was able to take like a good 6 to 8 months off, which is unheard of for most docs because, you can't leave your business. At that point in time, my ex-husband, we were in business together. He's also a chiropractor. So we were able to tag team and I could be home with my kids. I had that luxury of that choice. When our marriage ended and I rebuilt my practice, a new practice, I did it with my sons in mind, and that I wanted to, again, have hours and availability to be the kind of present mom, as well as grow a business that worked for me. And as time went on, I did that, and I realized I had to keep evolving and changing things because the level of stress and the level of fatigue, being a single mom and trying to do it all was drowning me. So I just kept making changes to adapt to them. And now I'm at the point where they're, almost 19 and 23. They need me very differently. They have definitely for the last 5 to 8 years. So I've been able to kind of tweak my business life a little bit more by still being present for them in different ways. So it's just, I've been evolving my business with my family needs and who I am and who I want to be as a mom. So
I think it's really important for a lot of people that are listening right now. I don't have kids. I've decided to do this chapter of my life solo for my own reasons, but the outcome is to be a certain type of father, be present, be a good husband, things like that. I wanted to get a few things done first, but it's interesting that you bring up fatigue. Looking at you as a health professional, oftentimes we see, like a therapist, they must be a perfect human. A health person must have their health dialed in and not feel the same pains that I feel as a non-health person, however we label each other. But I'm interested to find out how you dealt with fatigue during those times, running a business, being a single mom, and having 2 kids. It's a lot on your plate.
yeah, and eventually I changed my business model. So that was the big solution. But I mean, I still, for 10 years now, I mean, my body is changing, my body's maturing, my energy is pretty high still, but you have to look after your whole health. And looking after fatigue and burnout and exhaustion, that gets mixed in with all kinds of other emotions that people struggle with as well.
Mhm.
So, a big piece of my practice is looking at the cause of a problem. It's not just patching things up. So if we look at the cause of my fatigue, the cause of my stress level, yes, my kids at that point, were 4 and 8, 5 and 10. Like, they were busy years and playing competitive hockey and into all that world and running a house by myself. Like, yes, I was doing a lot, but I also had to take care of myself physically as best as I could. And I think that's where my knowledge of being in healthcare, and I'm not just a healthcare practitioner, like it's one of my top values is health. So the choices I make every day relate to, is this good for my health or not? From the food I choose, from knowing that some days I need more rest than others, from choosing to move my body, connecting with friends and having social time and loving partnerships and relationships like that. It all goes together. So I think, the short answer for that question is I have to take care of my health all the time. And I've seen it over and over again. When you take care of your health, you just perform better in all parts of your life. So yeah, I get tired sometimes, but it's more manageable. The other bigger choice at that point in time was I dramatically changed my business model, which changed a lot of the stressors on me. So that's the piece about getting to the cause. The cause of the problem at that point in time was what I was trying to do as one person, and recognizing like, this is not sustainable. And more importantly, it doesn't make me happy. So how do I reframe and get more clarity and move my life in a direction that really makes sense for me?
Now, that business model change, was that completely unique to you, or were there some universal principles in there that some of us can glean some valuable information from?
No, I think there's definitely some things that can apply. I mean, the short story is I had a practice that, in a bigger location. I had a team. We had other rooms we were renting as a multidisciplinary type of place. And I was just, when you have in any business, when you have more expenses, more people, you're managing more and you're spending that time and energy managing and supporting other people. And also you're needing to generate more income to sustain those costs and to still have a comfortable life, right? And to have a business growth. So when I looked at it for me, I was doing that as one person, also trying to manage my home life with my kids. And I'm like, I don't want to be all these things. Actually, what I love to be is a chiropractor. I love clinical care and I love teaching people about health and healing. And I love being a mom and just a person. I don't want to manage other people. I didn't want to be an HR director. I didn't want to be a landlord. Like, so when I kind of looked at the things I was doing and saying, I don't want to do those things, but I love doing these, I think the more we tap into the things that give us joy and are really our strengths, then things get a little bit easier. So I changed my model of, I sold that. My ex-husband bought me out of the property we owned. I sold my house and I bought the current place that I'm in right now, which is a live work space for me. So the last 500 square feet of my home is my practice. People come in the back. There's parking here. It's been all renovated. When my sons were younger, they could be home and I could be working. Now it's a little different, but the big simplification was everything got into one building. My hours were the same, but now because I wasn't managing all these other people and things, everything got streamlined. So from my business expenses, my operating expenses changed, obviously, which freed me up to explore and experiment with other things. Because when your expenses are lower, your income is still high. you have more disposable income or money to direct to other things. So from a business financial perspective, it made a lot of sense. But from a stress perspective, it changed everything for me because I could now suddenly have more flexibility. I wasn't spending the time on training people, on working with people. For me, again, in my practice, everything now is online. So people interact with me, they book appointments online, they can prepay, they can pre-book. I can one click send them a statement. And so the culture of my practice slowly changed as well. So it's not unique. I mean, I didn't downsize. I just changed the model in that I condensed things so that I could expand in some other ways. So I think if any other listeners are, thinking about their business, I think just look at how much are you doing more than you need to be doing to really satisfy like what your needs are. When it comes to clinical practice, there's lots of different ways to grow a thriving business. And it just depends on, getting clear on what you want and how that's going to shape your life.
It's like, yeah, busy being busy. Is it for a positive outcome? Is there a net positive at the end of that? No, there's a couple great books out there about running a lean business and some really good principles in there and tactics for people. Something that I want to talk about real quick, just to make it very clear for the audience. I come to you, what can I expect as an outcome? Like, why am I coming to you? Who's the type of person that could come to you, and what kind of outcome can they expect from working with you?
You can expect definitely a better level of overall health. I see people, in the practice who certainly come here because they have an injury or they have chiropractors, back pain. Sure, we can help you with back pain. I can help you with, neck pain, like mechanical things. But when you really get to the heart of chiropractic and we look at how the body functions movement pattern wise and how the spinal cord works within the spinal system, people's overall health improves in dramatic ways when their spine starts to move better. So I don't really typically work with, that's a tricky question, Jeff, because I actually work with everyone. And that's what keeps my practice so dynamic. What I don't do is I don't do any rehab type stuff in here. So if you come here and you've got a hip injury and you want me to just focus on your hip, I'm not going to do that. What I will look at is your whole body. We'll look at how your whole spinal system is moving, how your hip is moving in relation to your mid back and your neck. And we're going to take care of everything. And I'm just going to adjust you. As a chiropractor, I believe that the most powerful tool that we have is the adjustment. I know some docs like to use active release. They like to use Graston. They like to do acupuncture. They like to do other things in their modalities. I just don't choose to do that because there's a lot of other people that I will refer to that can do that. But I like to just focus on the spinal system and what I have the most expertise in. And also because I see the most dramatic changes with that. Sometimes people will go and have muscle work done. But again, if we're not looking at the cause, like I said earlier, sometimes the cause of that hip issue is not coming from the tight muscles. It's coming from the hips and the low back that's telling the muscles to contract too much. So what can people expect? They can expect a very, very thorough first couple of visits. I'm quite known for that. A lot of times people come in and tell me like, wow, no chiropractor's ever asked me these things before. I'm like, I can't comment on anyone else's approach or their style of practice, but the more I know about you, your overall health history. So the first visit is very thorough. Movement patterns, we're looking at posture, range of motion, neuro tests, orthopedic tests. We're also diving into your health history and things that may not seem relevant. I mean, I ask people about their stress levels and their digestion and lots of other pieces. And then you come back and we'll talk about things and what's going forward. And we'll essentially make a plan that's really much a partnership model of care. So if someone just wants a quick bit of care for that hip, we can do that. If you want to actually change how that hip is functioning and how it's connected to other parts of your body and how we can prevent it from ever coming back, we can do that too. So there's a lot of different a lot of options for people in my practice, because I think that the best doctors are the kind that actually help people understand their health and their body's ability to heal, and not just give them one tool, so to speak. So, and it's got to be the right fit. I absolutely think that the people that find me and come to me, majority of the people I see are referral based. So they already have heard something great, or they've, someone has had a positive experience that they want to have my opinion on. But there's got to be right fit. Some people absolutely want to see a chiropractor who's going to, spend half an hour, 40 minutes with them and get them an adjustment, but also do some more rehab type of stuff. So, I think that's why I spend a lot of time with people their first visit is like, I want to know, is this the right spot for you? And if so, great, here's what we're going to do. If it's not, that's absolutely okay. Let me find you someone that's better suited to what you're looking for right now.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I like that approach, especially the fitting part. The holistic part of your business name, is that because you're tackling it from a holistic point of view? Body is one system, all interconnected, or are there different modalities that you use? You mentioned modalities before, but I didn't quite get if you do other types of modalities outside of chiropractic work.
No, I don't do any other modalities. Like I'm not using any other tools in the practice besides my hands and an adjustment. The holistic part is that it's really important to me, again, getting back to the cause, is, if someone's coming in and they're chronically having, we'll stick with this hip example, they're chronically having this hip issue and I'm adjusting it. We're doing all we can. Okay, well, we have to figure out what's causing it. Is it something that you're doing at your training, at your exercise? Is it how you're sitting at work? Is it, again, your hormones? Is it your stress levels, your food that's inflammatory? So I feel like we always need to look at the other pieces of the puzzle. So in addition to my work, the holistic pieces, I will often run programs for people in a health coaching kind of capacity. So using the tools that we have as a chiropractor diagnostically and our abilities to look at the whole picture, being able to give them specific recommendations for food, for movement, for sleep, for stress. And that lifestyle piece is integrated into all of my care in all the visits I have, but there are definitely people that I will spend more time with, and they will, they'll invest that time with me to actually dive in a little bit more and figure out, okay, what's really going on here? Because I think if you keep patching up your health, in my experience, almost 25 years, you miss a big piece of the puzzle. And sometimes you're chasing the problem, but you're not really getting to the cause. So for me, the holistic piece is helping people understand what else can you do when you're not here. If you watch your stress, if you eat different food, if you move your body, if you watch, your connections and things that are creating drama in your life, you're going to get better results from your adjustments, whatever chiropractor you see, right? So it's how do we help people understand those pieces and do more when they're not in my practice so that they get better results when they are in my practice.
Yeah. I love it. I mean, it's foundational to my life is what am I doing for my waking hours and how am I sleeping? It's the whole thing rather than just a session here or there. Something I'm curious about, this is something I hear about quite a bit, being in the health world, dealing with a lot of injuries. We were bodybuilders once a time ago. And so there were a lot of injuries going around. And so physio was probably more of the hot topic. Chiropractic did come into play here and there. Now, mind you, being 38 now, this was 10, 12 years ago. But one of the things that I heard about chiropractic, although I haven't heard it too much anymore, we have a few clients, our chiropractors have good clinics here in Simcoe County. We've had a number of them on the show. But one of the, I guess, gripes, for lack of a better word, is once you go to a chiropractor, you always have to go. It's never really fixed. And without me delving into that, I have my thoughts on it. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, that is a great question because it's certainly one of those myths out there. And I'll be honest, I haven't heard that one in a long time either. I think people are just more aware and more savvy healthcare consumers now, which is great. So no, you're never addicted to chiropractic. We're not actually doing anything to you that's making you addictive to our services. Not possible. And as far as I'm concerned, and I can't speak to the business practices or philosophies or approaches of other practitioners, but it is always up to you, up to consumer, how much they want to benefit from chiropractic. And to me, there's always options. That's what I tell people. We can actually just deal with the problem. And keeping this hip example, your hip is, bothering you. It's from my perspective, it's alignment. We need to adjust you. That pain may go away really quickly. It may go away within a couple of visits, maybe a couple of weeks, maybe longer, depending on what's going on. Then that's it. You can choose that relief care option. And you can leave my office and never come back. Or I have a file here, and whenever you have an injury again, you can come back. And I've had people, in 20 years come every year, or every 6, like they're here for something. They only come in for their adjustments. They know that I would rather have them really change their whole movement patterns and really get that hip working better and have it last longer. But that's not always their approach that's affordable for people. It doesn't work with their schedule, their timing. So, there's other variables, or it's just not a priority, right? Some people just prefer to manage their health by reacting to things. So I'll deal with it when there's a problem versus looking at how do I prevent problems from happening? How do I prevent this problem from getting worse? So, the myth about like, once you got to go, you always got to go. I don't know. It's not happening. That's not the case. Anyone who's told you that, I would say, get another opinion. If a chiropractor told you that, but truthfully, I think what happens, Jeff, is when people start feeling better, they typically want to keep something up, right? So I have people that have been in my practice literally, and they come every 2 to 4 weeks for probably about 15 years. And that is not me telling them you need to be here. That's like, I get sick less. My kids get sick less. If I have an injury, I recover so much quicker. This is just something that I want to do for a healthy lifestyle. So that's a choice. So most people choose to continue chiropractic care on some level because if they've had a good experience with it, they want to feel better. Who doesn't want to feel better? So it's not something that we're doing physically to make you addicted to us. You're going to feel better.
Yeah. And you already touched on it, but I'd love to just really put an exclamation point on this. For when I was really beating up my body, like we were competitive, a group of us, that's what my gyms were for, high level bodybuilders. Some of them were natural, some of them weren't. Certainly the ones that weren't natural, the beating up on the body was even more extreme as they're pushing their bodies past their natural limit. So almost all of us had a part of our team, health practitioners there before injuries. Like I'm lucky I didn't really get any injuries, no major tears, anything like that. It was just part of the practice. If I'm going to eat this way, sleep this way, work out this way, you need these things. So we were very proactive about it to last as long as we can, because we know that one injury could take you out of your whole year game plan. So how do you feel about people just making it a part of their lifestyle, like the gym? I don't go to the gym because I got overweight and want to lose weight. Now I go to the gym so that never happens and I stay healthy, especially cognitively. Now, people like Huberman, a lot of these guys out there with these big voices are talking to us more about the depths at which health actually helps you with, rather than just that external image, but mentally, emotionally, hormonally, I think the impact is massive. So we do it to live a better life across the board. How do you feel about that when it comes to chiropractic? Is that for the person out there that really wants to live their best life, no injuries, they just want to live a better life? Can they get that from regular chiropractic work?
Yes. Hands down. Yes. And the reason being, I mean, we talk about the nerve system, your brain is attached to your spinal cord that runs everything in your body, right? A lot of conversations in the last year or two, I would say, about nervous system, right? Nervous system and vagal nerve and all this stuff. Well, truthfully, Jeff, I mean, this is chiropractic. I mean, vagal nerve comes from your cranium. It's one of the cranial nerves. So it comes down and it affects everything. Well, every adjustment stimulates the spinal receptors that stimulate that feeling. Like, it's not uncommon for people to feel just a general sense of well-being after I don't know if you had this when you were getting adjusted with your bodybuilding, but it's entertaining to me because people leave the practice some days and, they're like, oh God, I feel like, I don't do drugs, but I think this is maybe what it feels like. Or one's like, I always feel so grounded. I feel like I could dance out of here. Oh, wow. I just feel better. I don't know why I feel better. I'm like, well, I can tell you why you feel better. Neurologically, you've got actually stimulation for dopamine receptors throughout your whole spinal column. So, and they get inhibited essentially when you have spinal. I know I'm using my hands and your listeners won't hear this, but I'm Italian. And also I'm used to showing people models of stuff, but
they'll see the video. Oh yeah.
Okay. If the spinal joints are out of alignment, they're going to create interference, so to speak, in some of those neurological reflexes that we have in our body. So whether those reflexes are telling your body awareness about how you should be moving, or those reflexes are telling you how to actually, stimulate your brain and your emotions and how you can feel better. I mean, that's all been studied extensively now. We know that chiropractic affects the brain. So if you're talking about optimizing performance, optimizing health in general, you need your brain functioning high, right? And so it's the same reason that tell you that I've seen, families every 2 weeks for 15, 20 years almost. They're not coming here because they're addicted or because they're, they have a chronic injury. They're coming because they just feel better consistently and they see chiropractic as part of their life. So that's totally my jam. I mean, when we see babies who are crying or they won't nurse properly and they get adjusted, and adjustments for kids, for anyone listening, are totally different than what they are for adults. But when you see that little baby change and they can start breastfeeding differently, or they're now pooping and they were constipated, or they're not screaming as much, it's not because they had back pain. It's because they had nervous system tension that we released with their adjustments, and they just perform differently and they thrive. So it all comes back to the nervous system for me, and brain health, and how does that affect your overall health. So can chiropractic help someone perform better, work better, have better relationships? For me, it all comes back to your health. Like you said earlier, your health affects everything you do and everyone that you know, whether it's your sports, your hobbies, your relationships, your work. And that's why for me, it's also tied to business, because you can't usually have one without the other. If you go too hard in your business, your health may suffer. So how do you build a business that helps you live a healthy life? So there's a lot of different parallels there.
Yeah, I love it. Great answer and great information for the people listening, because it really was like, for a long time growing up, physio and chiropractic was like, go when you need it, not go preemptively as one of your practices. Now people have practices like, I'm getting in a cold bath every morning, I'm going in a sauna, or I'm walking up a hill with a vest on. There's this big push for health because I think we're more aware of it. I think we're less ignorant.
Yeah.
And I think,
have you had that your experience yourself? Like,
which one?
Well, just are you more aware of your health now because you're in your 30s and not your 20s, or just life experiences? Or, I mean, being competitive, you said, you had physio and chiropractic, you had treatments when you had injuries, but what has shifted? Has something shifted your model of kind of the way you approach your own health?
I've taken I don't even know if this is a shift, but I've taken much more responsibility for my own health. At the beginning stages, I didn't know what I didn't know. And through, like, let's say you were my chiropractor, I would have picked your brain every time I came there every 2 weeks to learn what I need to learn to handle more of it on my own. And it really is the refer to experts to find out what I need to find, rather than maybe watching a YouTube video, something like that. Not to say that there's not good information on there. There is, but we have great local experts. So I ask the questions. But I would say in all truth, no, it hasn't really changed that much. I've been very proactive about health. If there actually, let me take that statement back. The big change has gone from being purely to a physical outcome to now a much more internal outcome. Sorry, internal. That's my focus. Hormonally, brain, how I focus, how my emotions are, how I'm connecting with people, rather than just trying to be as jacked as possible to get on stage and win a trophy. It was all about that external shield that I almost had on me. A lot of my lifting was rooted in insecurity, being very tall and skinny, that kind of stuff, having a hard time in elementary school. I wanted to be big and feared by men, attracted by women, that kind of stuff. I think a lot of boys that have that at a young age go to that. Whereas now it's much more about quality of life. That's been the big change, and why I'm interested in many different things outside of just lifting weights. Sleep, major focus for me. Hormones has been just dramatically changed my life over the last 8 years, from 30 to 38, which I knew nothing about hormones prior to that. And if it was just about getting bigger and stronger, I probably wouldn't have cared all that much. Now it's more about how it affects every day of my life. So those would be the big changes. It was external before, internal now.
I love what you said about taking responsibility for your health. I think if there was one thing I wish more people would do, it would be that, in the sense of really just be aware that you only get one body. So what can you do to take care of it? And it's not a chiropractor, your physician, it's not anyone else's job to fix you. It's your job to take responsibility for what else you can do. And also, the more you do, you're going to get better results, but you're going to feel more empowered. And you're going to see, like you felt, like your health isn't not just how you look, or it's how you feel. It's how you feel emotionally, how you connect with people, how you sleep. Like I love that you said it's such a whole piece, because I couldn't agree more.
I think it affects every aspect of your life. I know when my sleep's off, the performance of the day, if it were to be measured, would go down. So sleep is a huge priority. The older I get, the more it is. I'm interested what brought you to this world, Dr. Longo. What was the catalyst that said, I'm going to dedicate my life to feeling good and helping other people feel good?
Oh, I said this to my son today. I love being interviewed because people ask you really good questions and get you to reflect. I was studying kinesiology at McMaster, and I always really loved, when I was doing my undergrad, I became a fitness instructor. I just loved physical activity. I liked the performance side of it. I got my, was able to teach classes, and I didn't do my personal training certificate, but I was in kin. And interestingly enough, I had an injury in my third year of university, and I was getting some tingling in my arm, and I was like, what to do? My mom's like, you should go see a chiropractor. I'm like, okay, I don't know anything about chiropractors. And sure enough, I called 3 different people, went to one that could see me, and I sat in front of her, and she was so personable, and she was like, oh, you're in kinesiology, and okay, I'm going to tell you what's going on in your body. And because I was in kin, I had an understanding of anatomy and physiology and some body mechanics. So she was like, oh, you know all the stuff. And she said, and Jeff, I can tell you this moment is still ingrained in my mind. She's like, well, you should just become a chiropractor. And I don't know to this day, well, I feel like it's an intuitive thing. Like something in me was like, oh yes, I think I'm going to apply. I don't know where that even came from. I knew nothing about chiropractic until that moment. But what she told me was so logical. I was like, well, of course, the anatomy structure, like if things are off, it's going to have something. That's my first visit with her ever. I was like, I'm going to apply. So sure enough, I did. She took care of me. I applied to the school. And in that time frame, I also started getting adjusted, and I just saw my whole health change. I was getting, at that point, I was in university. So I was having a good time, and I was working and in my 20s, but my back hurt if I stood too long. Well, that's normal. No, it's not normal. I would get cold sores. I would get sore throats. I would be on antibiotics probably half a dozen times a year. And again, I just thought that's what you do. But over, a year of getting adjusted and learning more about health and healing through her and through my own studies, and then I was applying to the college. I just saw my health totally change, which then convinced me that, wow, this is amazing. And then, that was kind of the catalyst. Then I got into the school, and, a lot of hard work. But it just kept evolving, right? My understanding of, okay, so now we know what the body needs to function and to thrive. Well, what about, food? What kind of food should we be eating? And okay, well, I'm going to have a baby. So how am I going to have a baby? Like, okay, I'm going to have my kids actually at home because I feel that might be safer for them, and I can do that. And then it made me question, well, how am I cleaning my house? I don't want chemicals around my kids. So then, get the toxicity out. And I always needed to move. And we're foodies in my family. We're Italian. So good food has always been a part of my life. So those variables were there. But when I started to understand that health came from within the body, and I just saw the effects of chiropractic on my own health. I haven't taken an antibiotic I've been in practice 23 years, 4 years of school. So probably almost 30 years, Jeff. And that doesn't mean I don't get run down. I got an injury right now. I'm rehabbing, but I don't rely on pharmaceuticals. I have a great healthcare team myself. My kids have never had antibiotics, and they are, like 19 and 23. So it just really changed my foundation of health, working with her and learning the more I did. You just kind of keep evolving and exploring. So I think that's I'm getting excited now talking about it, because it changed my life for sure. And it's what keeps me excited in practice 23 years later, is you see these things and helping other people see this. This is what you can do. This is what's possible for you. You don't have to rely on these things. And don't get me wrong, there's a place for pharmaceuticals. There's a place for antibiotics, but not all the time for people. If we can treat something differently and get your body healing from the inside out, that's always going to produce a better outcome. So I think I answered your question.
Yeah, you did thoroughly. I love the story. And it's just such an interesting thing for me. We've now done, I think, 418 or 19 guests on the show, all entrepreneurs here from Simcoe County. And that's one of my favorite questions to ask is what was the spark? If there was one thing, what was it? If it was a series of things, walk me through it. And so many of us have our own version of that same story. For me, I wanted to get in shape because of X, Y, and Z. So I went to a personal trainer, changed my life. And I'm like, I'm going to become a personal trainer. So I did. Along the way, I met gym owners and saw how they were affecting so many more people than I was in a similar way. So then I owned a gym. During my gym process, I struggled to scale. So eventually met a mentor, said, get into marketing, sales, these types of things. I did. I hired that team. I learned what I needed to learn from them, sold the business, loved it so much, got obsessed with scaling businesses. that now we own a marketing and a business that scales businesses. And that's it. It was all like, I have this problem in my life, so I'm going to go to an expert to help me solve it. Wow, that was really quite something. And now I'm going to learn it to help the next person. It's such a common theme. It really is fantastic, though, when you find something that empowers you so much. The human's first thought is, I need to do this to help other people do this. It gives me a lot of hope, especially in darker times. Depending on what you're consuming right now, you may be going through a darker time. I think a lot of it is in our face. I won't even bring it up, but it's quite an optimistic thought that makes me feel quite good that when someone figures out, in so many cases, a problem I've solved for myself, I now want to help others solve that same problem and pay it forward. It's pretty cool. Let's talk about
true entrepreneurs are always evolving, right? And if I think about my own exploration from, chiropractic, sure, but even changing my business model, which I explained, and then how did I get into coaching? Well, okay, I started a podcast. I started podcasting 7-8 years ago when there weren't very as many podcasts as there are now. And then that grew into a community, and then that grew into another show. And then it kept evolving, right? And then people wanted to work with me. So then it was like, okay, well, I'll do this as well as my practice. And, to having a production company, like those pieces didn't just happen all together. They just were stepping stones, like what you described. You just kind of see a need and, not only is there a need, but actually it makes me happy and it makes me feel purposeful and joyous to actually do these things, which I think that's a big key for people listening, though, is you've got to find what lights you up. And as much as you can, find ways to do that more. And if you can make it into your work, then that's the best way. But if you can't, because of your own circumstances, still find ways to enjoy those things that light you up and give you passion and purpose on the side as hobbies or just socially or something, because life is meant to be joyous. And there are definitely lots of hard things happening for people. There have been, I think, for the last 5 years in different ways. But my only little response to that, would be just, you have to control what you can. You can't control things around you, but you can always control how much sleep you got. You can control your stress response. You can control how much nourishment you give your body. And if you focus on those things that you can control, it gives people sometimes a little bit more power on being more resilient around the things that they can control.
I agree wholeheartedly. Speaking of lighting things up, let's rapid fire here. 5 things that light you up.
Oh, good coffee.
Okay. Caffeinated, decaf.
Always caffeinated.
Okay.
5 things that light me up. Being around great people, great conversations. Being at work. Like, definitely, I love being in my practice because I get to have such cool conversations and see cool things happen. 5 things that light me up. Being at the beach, being outside in the summer, travel, okay. Curiosity and creativity are big things for sure.
I love it. And you may take this as a dig. You didn't say family on there. But that is our most common response. When we get entrepreneurs on here, it's like, I love my business. I love my family. Yeah. So I'm happy. We know you love your family. You talked about being a mom like 4 or 5 times now.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to hear beach, travel. To be honest, my favorite answer was curiosity and creativity. You're the first one out of multiple hundreds of people to say that lights you up. And it is one of the things that drives my life the most, why we created this podcast. I'm a counselor at an addictions facility that, again, through the story I just told a moment ago, it was trying to solve my own problem, went to somebody, they helped me do it. And I thought, I can help other people do this. And so that is all through conversations. You get to tinker with people and figure out how they work and learn more how you work through those conversations. It's just super fulfilling. Let's talk about hard things. I think hard things, at least from, you're probably more into the world of science than I am, being a doctor and me not being, but I try to follow as much science as possible. And at least from what I have learned from science, it seems like the body is designed for energy conservation for the most part, from the people that I listen to. Easy feels good, hard feels hard for a reason. I think we're wired that way.
Yeah.
To have a more comfortable life. Otherwise, to me, it seems logical to be like, if easy wasn't supposed to be there for us, it wouldn't feel so good, and hard would feel better. And we'd be moving all the time and constantly conquering everything we wanted to do. But it doesn't seem like that's the case. And it also seems like struggles, often failures, how we want to define them. I think everybody has a little bit of a different definition for that word, but you lost at something. You tried something and you failed. It wasn't successful. We often bury those or carry guilt and shame around those things. And there are a lot of really successful, powerful voices out there for maybe the last 10 years or so, popularizing this idea that doing hard things can have such a dramatically positive impact on your life. We want to be one of those voices by sharing the stories of the entrepreneurs that come on here. All of them have been through a hard thing. And what have we learned from that? So we love to ask the guests on the show, any trials, tribulations, hardships that you've been through, Dr. Longo.
You just want one?
I feel like that's the only amount of time we have.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I think I alluded to earlier.
Before you start,
yeah,
we'd love to hear about it if you're comfortable with it. And then what was the outcome of it? Like, how did it change you? Did it make you worse? As so many of us think, we don't want to do this thing because the risk will make us worse. What did you learn from it?
Gosh, one thing. I mean, I think I already alluded to the struggle. When I changed my business model, it was because I was feeling strapped for cash, stressed, and struggling to meet all the demands on my life as a mom that I wanted to be, and my business. So we talked about how I resolved that. I changed it, moved on. I went through divorce, right? Mm-hmm. So with my boys were 3 and 7, divorce is not easy on anyone. We got through that fairly well. I think, how did it change me? It changed our relationship with my ex-husband. We're really great co-parents. He's an amazing man. He's an amazing father. I'm very, very thankful for him. And I feel very lucky because I know that, unfortunately, the more divorces I hear about, they don't go that way. Things get really, really tense and awful between people. So I think, there was a lot of fear and a lot of struggle in that process, though. And I think about it now. Going through divorce, my boys were 3 and 7. I was not really in practice because I said my ex-husband was a chiropractor, so he took over the practice. So I had to rebuild and start over again. Essentially, a practice that was 6 or 7 years old, I had to start over again with no one. So going and getting a loan and navigating, what my practice was going to look like, and having to do that with 2 young kids. And it was beyond challenging. And then when I moved to this place, that year was crazy because I had 3 different properties I was managing. Then my house sold really quick. And then we had to move in here, and place was under construction. I was trying to build a new business. 2012 was a really crazy year. But again, you're asking me what we got through. Would I do it again? 100%. I would fail. I would fail often. I do fail often because I don't look at failure as a dirty word. And I talk with my clients. I remember saying to my kids, they were sitting on the couch one day, and I said, I hope you guys have lots of failures. And they were like, you're horrible. What are you talking about, Mom? I'm like, because how else are you going to build character and find out who you are and build resilience? And I know people go through lots of hard things, right? And I feel like also pain is relevant, right? Or it's relative rather to the person. How I got through things is a combination of who I am as a person, the support I had around me. Not everyone has those. So I know that some people go through hard things and find it harder to rally through, but you don't learn when things are comfortable. You don't find out who you are. You don't, what if you take a risk and it fails? Okay. You got some data. Now you know those pieces of the puzzle that didn't work for you, whether that's in a relationship or that's in business or a new marketing thing you try, a sport. If you try, then you get information about whether it works for you, whether it doesn't, know how you can improve. Whereas you just have to fail better. I think it's failure's data. I think I think I've answered your question, but I think I'm going off track now. So, I've had lots of hard things. And one of my best friend, she said at one point at a speech she was giving about me, she's like, Melissa's really fearless. I'm like, I don't think I'm fearless. I'm just better at failing because I don't see it as an attack on my personality. I don't see it attack on me. And don't get me wrong, Jeff, sure, if something doesn't work out, I launch programs all the time. If you're in the world of online coaching or marketing and program, you try things, they don't work, people don't like it, they don't pay for it. Okay, whatever, next. What did I gain from this? what's the market telling me? How can I make this better? And whether that has applied to one-on-one coaching or programs I've done, some things are great and some things don't hit. And you go back to the drawing board. And so I've had lots of experiences like that. That's why I was laughing at being, you're like, how do you deal with hard things? I'm like, life is hard all the time sometimes, but your resilience and who you are and your level of health and your support and all these things that we've been talking about this whole show, that's what's going to help you rise and get through things. And every single time, if I look back now at things that were hard, there's always been something better that's come out of it. Always. Whether it's been injuries that I've had physically. I mean, if you're a hands-on person and you have a physical injury, it's hard because my income is attached to providing care for people. So if I'm not in the practice, that changes our livelihood. So there's things like that. And whether you're going through a challenge, it's a physical challenge or an emotional challenge, those things are always going to be happening, but they always 100% have led me personally to something much bigger and better down the road. If you can have that perspective to find the support and find the silver linings in it.
I love that you said failure is data. I mean, I love the whole story, but that was really a good takeaway. There is a mentor out there that I like listening to. He has a great podcast, and he says that failure is the most information-rich stream of data, and that you cannot live a high-quality life without it. And it's how that line right there is injected into a lot of the decisions that I make. At least I try to keep it there, because of course I have fear like anybody else. I don't know that we can live fearless, to be honest.
I think I actually did a podcast episode all on failure on my show, because it was a short one. It was like, here's how you need to reframe it a little bit. And it's also making me think of a recent episode that I released, and it was about experimentation and why it's good for your health and your life and your business. And in order to experiment, you have to be prepared to fail. So I think we just need to I think we need a new word, Jeff. I think the word needs to not be failure. I'm sure there's some situations where acute failure it's the right term, but in general in life, I think people are looking at simple things as losses and failures. And maybe that's just, it took you as far as it was supposed to go, and you need to go somewhere else. So maybe it's not a failure. It's more like an awareness, or like we said, data. I can only speak from my own experience and my own perspective. And, I don't want to minimize anyone listening who is, oh, whatever, lady, like that sounds really optimistic. Well, yeah,
why not though? Why not have an optimistic look on life?
If you have the choice, that's my goal. I mean, I think it's one of the purposes I have here. We said earlier is like to have a business that inspires and offers hope and light to people. That's the business that I'm in. So thank you for acknowledging that I can just sit here and be positive.
No, I can't. Sometimes people, I drive them nuts. I'm like, I have the choice to be negative or positive. I've had negative chapters of my life that sucked. I've had many positive chapters of my life that were awesome. I now know the feeling of the two. I'm going to choose positive every time. Sorry, my life
is messy. It's not always beautiful. I mean, it's that messiness that gives you, again, that depth, that resilience. It helps you appreciate. I mean, right now I'm looking outside. It's kind of gross. It affects people's mood, but you know what? There's going to be sunny days too that are going to be better, and you can appreciate that. It's a really simple analogy, but when you have darkness or difficult times, and you're going to get through them, or you do get through them, or you see other people get through them, it gives you that hope. And then I'm sure you've seen that too with people you've worked with in the addiction work. Like when people recover and they see a light and they see a purpose in something bigger that can inspire them, it's a really beautiful thing.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's one of the most emotional experiences for me, especially when addiction can really be described as like the depths of hell. Some of those substances, how long they've been there. And if you can help them break through, and then all of a sudden it's like they wake up from a zombie to a functioning human that wants to, suck the marrow out of life. That is a transformation. Like I never saw that in fitness, incredible transformations, but I've never seen pain like I've seen in addiction. I love that story though. And I think many can relate to what you described. I can't imagine how hard divorce is, especially building a brand new business at the same time. And a lot of us want to avoid those hard conversations and not disconnect from what we have because we're fear of what it would be like without. And we say that with relationships at the clinic all the time, abusive relationships, let's say, and they're so fearful to leave because they don't know what the uncertainty is, at least the painful certainty. They know what to expect. It seems like we're very fearful of what we can't tell, what's coming next.
Mm-hmm.
But you're speaking to your perfect client right now, your ideal clientele, your audience.
Mm-hmm.
What do you tell them about how you increase the quality of your life? Like, what's the main thing you want to tell them about Thrive Chiropractic and holistic care?
You were born to thrive. Like our bodies were designed to feel good and to be purposeful and to function well. And if you are feeling in any way that you are not, if you're limited right now by your energy, by your digestion, by your movement patterns, by pain, by dysfunction, there's a way. And if you've had approaches before that haven't worked, don't give up. Like find practitioners that support you and are right for you. The body is inherently amazing. The body is inherently brilliant. And when you give it what it needs to thrive and I believe that, spinal care is absolutely part of that puzzle, but the body also needs adequate movement. We're not designed to be sedentary. The body needs it needs sleep. It needs rest and recovery. It needs good food. Like we know what the body needs to thrive. And so if you're feeling like you're not thriving, just know there's a way. Know that you just haven't found your way yet. And there's lots of people in this area that have different professional levels of expertise that know you can feel better. So whether they're trainers, whether they're nutritionists, whether they're physicians, psychotherapists, eye doctors, chiropractors, you just haven't found your right team yet. But know you can feel better. Know you deserve to feel better. And find the right path forward with the right people.
I love it. Last two things for you. First one's easy. People want to reach out to you. What's the best way to connect? You writing a book over there, Dr. Longo?
Do I have a what?
You writing a book over there? What's going on?
I'm thinking about it this year, Jeff. I am thinking about it because I have a lot of content. I have a lot of content, but I also love the audio form, and I like efficiency too. So I can share things on a podcast. It's a lot quicker for me. And I love the audio medium. So I don't have a book yet, but that might happen this year. Nice, succinct little manual for good living.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to congratulate you guys actually, because you said you had over 400 shows. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of commitment and a lot of energy. And for anyone who's, podcasts, they know like it's not just the interviews. The interviews are the fun part. Then there's a lot of the back end stuff, the tech stuff, the marketing of the show. Because I've done it for years myself, and it takes a lot of energy. Mm-hmm. And it's very worthwhile and great. But I want to commend you for that, because you're definitely creating a great service for the community. And clearly it's something that, that you're good at and you enjoy. So that's good for yourself as well. So where can people find me? I think the easiest way is to go to drmelissalongo.com, because there you'll definitely have a link to my practice. It's pretty succinctly laid out there as far as the three kind of main branches of my life and business, and whether you want to work with me clinically or you want to work with me in other projects, all the information's there. And Instagram, I'm probably on Instagram. I don't really love social media these days as much as I used to. But I'm much more active on Instagram, and that's just at Dr. Melissa Longo.
Yeah. Beautiful. Last question. The two main drivers, both equally valuable compasses in my life, are feeling good and impact. Impact is my service to other people, and feeling good is kind of me for me type of thing. The selfish and the selfless are on the two sides of the same coin. Mm-hmm. And impact was taught to me by a wonderful human being, a very important mentor in my life. She's still in it, and she was there at 22 when she first started asking me about impact. I was 22. I didn't think about impact, just like girls, cars, bodybuilding, like that kind of stuff. And it really changed my life. She basically said, you're born, you die, and what's that middle piece equate to? Is it a net negative, a net positive, or is it completely indifferent? And that really got me thinking. And it's one of the things I feel most privileged to do, because it is probably my favorite question to ask. What's going on in other people's brain? Do they think about impact? Do they know the ripple effect of their existence? Can they see how far it goes? And are they intentional about it? I love asking these questions. So, Dr. Melissa Longo, what would you like your impact to be?
I would like my impact to be leading people towards better health and knowing what's possible for themselves. The first thing that came up to mind, though, when you asked me what the drivers of my life were, I said my sons and health. Those are the two things. because they've shaped so much of it, right? And I've learned so much through motherhood as well. But at the core, yes, my impact in business, my impact to society, aside from my sons, would definitely be health. That the body is designed to be healthy, and you deserve to be healthy. And we can, help you find the way. There's books, there's podcasts, there's resources, there's so many things. But at the core of it, you can't hack your health. It's got to be an active way of living consistently to get you the best results. So, if I can help, I say my role in life my purpose is to help people thrive in life, health, and business. So
awesome. I love it. Dr. Longo, it's been a pleasure speaking to you.
Thanks so much for the opportunity, Jeff. I enjoyed this.
Yeah, it's been really good. Until we chat again, you have a great afternoon.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnpwithjeffandsean.com. That's gnpwithjeffandsean.com or call 705-413-3775.